This is episode number 310 of the InnerFight podcast. We are joined to talk yoga by Melanie Swan. Big shout out to our show sponsor, Smith Street Paleo. Of course, rate and review the podcast over in iTunes, and we shall send you a goodie bag from Smith Street Paleo. No matter where you are in the world, thanks for tuning in. Let's jump in to today's show.
Enough messing around. Let's do it. Andre, I got one word for you. You ready?
Hit me.
Yoga. There she is. She's laughing. Melanie Swan, Desert Swan blog. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're one of my closest yogis and yoga inspirations.
Well, thank you, Marcus. I know that that's saying a lot from you.
It is, because I see, honestly, okay, this is the scene. We know that we should stretch, we know that we should take care of our bodies, but you are a yoga teacher.
Yes, I am.
And you've been practicing yoga for how long?
Around about 9 years.
Around about 9 years. So it's life for you.
It is, yeah.
What is... Okay, let's rewind. How did you get into it 9 years ago?
I think it is, for me, it's basically like anyone else's journey. I think you go into it thinking, I've heard so many things about yoga, it's going to be a good physical practice, it's going to be good for your mind. So I think I went into it really, honestly, I had no idea what I was going to expect. I had no preconceptions.
Really?
I went into it thinking, people say this is good for you, so I'm going to go try. So
Yeah,
it was really that simple.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how anything starts, right?
I guess it is, but I mean, put this into a little bit of context. You're not a full-time yoga teacher. You have a career. What's your career, and what do you actually do for a living? Let's start there.
All right, so my full-time job is a journalist, so I write news stories for the national newspaper. So by day, that is my kind of daytime hat.
A lot, but maybe later.
And then yes, in my spare time, I should say, I teach yoga.
Right. So you're a journalist by trade. That's what you've done all your life.
Yep, all my life. I've been a journalist for about 16, 17 years.
How do you get into that? Were you one of these kids that just used to stay in the library at school writing bullshit stories about stuff?
Do you know what? I'm the worst creative writer. I've never, ever been able to write good stories. I actually grew up with a dad who used to tell me these kind of bedtime stories, or like in the morning when I used to wake up at the crack of dawn and my mum was like, go back to sleep.
Yeah.
My dad would tell me these amazing stories and I'd be like, wow, where does Dad know all these stories from? And actually it was his real life, so it was actually not that he was this creative writer.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up thinking, stories, but actually I couldn't do it for nothing.
Really?
So I used to, actually how I got into writing was writing like little love letters to my mum, like stupid stuff. I just used to write all the time. Like if every time I go through my house now, like I go back to visit my dad, I still find all this stuff that I used to write. My mum used to save it, like notes and cards and letters and stuff. I just used to love writing, and honestly it was that simple. I went from just writing stuff like that to journaling, and it just was the only thing that I really knew that I loved from a really young age.
Was it a way of expressing yourself when you were young? Is that sort of how one gets into writing, because it's an easy way to express yourself?
I think so. For me, it was just this kind of outpouring of whatever I was thinking and feeling. So maybe I was just this spiritual soul from a child.
But I think that's true. Eh? Like for me, I was able to express myself when I was younger through sport. And I think a lot of my personality comes through sport. Andre, you're the same.
Same, yeah.
You played sport from a very young age, and not that you're obviously not sporty. Obviously, we've tapped into the yoga side already. But do you think it's something that we're almost born with and we're destined to be, that the way of expressing ourselves is in these different mediums?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, people can go to university or college and study journalism and come away with journalism qualifications. But to me, journalism is a personality. It's a kind of human being.
Yeah.
There's no human being who can go and knock on someone's door who's just lost a relative in a car, in a bombing, in a terrorism attack. And there's no kind of training that really teaches you to write in the way that comes naturally from the heart.
Yeah. You've actually just hammered something home. Obviously, terrorism is something that's big on the mind at the moment, and there's lots of terrible stuff going on in the world. Like, to actually put that into words, you've actually probably got one of the most challenging jobs in the world.
And to know how to speak to people, to relate to people. Yeah. I mean, for example, when I was working back home on the tabloids back in the UK, you'd be on a doorstep, you'd have 5 or 10 other journalists, and you're all kind of scrambling for the same exclusive interview, and you're trying to beg people to speak to you. And at the end of the day, it's not who the newspaper that you write for, but it's you that they choose to speak to, because somehow you resonate with them and you relate to that person.
Yeah. So how did it all start? You start writing these notes at home, and you realise that you've got a talent for writing, and then how did it progress? Did you sort of write more at school and then did you study journalism?
Yeah,
Take us through that a little bit.
At school, it was pretty much the one subject I was like super good at, and I was like, oh, I'm good at English. That must mean that I'm supposed to be a journalist. And it was kind of like,
oh, really?
Yeah, I don't really know where it came from. It wasn't like my parents ever told me.
What age were you when that happened?
I think from as young as I can remember, I was always really good at English, and from primary school and into senior school.
Wow. Future plans set up already back
Straight
then.
Up, yeah.
So from as young as I can remember, I always used to say I was going to be a journalist. And I honestly have no idea where it came from, because I have no journalists in the family. I've never even known journalists growing up. And especially even when I became my first newspaper job was on the News of the World, which is pretty hardcore.
Yeah, if you're English, you know that's a great newspaper.
Everyone knows that newspaper is pretty hardcore level.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, if this is journalism, I think I was a bit confused.
And what were you doing for News of the World?
So basically, I did you asked me what I studied. So I actually studied politics. I did my degree in politics.
Wow.
My parents were like, you are not going to study journalism because that is not really a degree. Oh, no. So they were like, you're going to study something proper. So I wasn't allowed to do journalism at degree level. So I did a journalism sort of postgraduate diploma.
Right.
And then News International, who obviously has lots of different newspapers, including The Sun and The Times, etc. I became a graduate trainee. So they put me into News of the World to do my kind of cutting my teeth, getting my feet wet, basically.
Toughen you up a bit.
Yeah, and wow, it did toughen me up.
Yeah,
that was definitely a kind of a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And from there, that was where everything sort of started.
So were you writing on politics?
No, it was all kind of...
News of the World and politics to me is quite interesting.
So no, there was a lot of celebrity stuff that I did, which is definitely not what the idealistic side of me was imagining I would go into. I was thinking that I was going to write stuff to change the world and talk about humanitarian issues. And here I was, one of my first stories, and I can laugh about it now, but I was like almost crying when I got it. One of my first stories was to do a kiss and tell. And if anyone knows what kiss and tells are, it's not something that when you're like this blushing 21-year-old postgraduate, like, hope this is my first job, I'm like, oh my God, ask questions about what? Write about what? You mean ask her this?
Yeah.
So it was a tough wake-up call.
I can imagine. And I can imagine, I don't know, you've got what the public portray is said to media, like briefs, especially in papers like The Sun or News of the World, where, without going too deep, I don't believe what they print. Like,
no.
So how did that at a young age, when you're thrown into it, are you almost being told what to write and what to do, or how does it all work?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the most common question I get when I come here is, oh, well, you're in the UAE, surely you're censored, you're this, you're that. But the reality is, any newspaper in any country, there's an agenda, there's alliances. Whether you work in Denmark, in Spain, in France, there's always whether it's a political agenda, a social agenda, whatever the social issues that they want to highlight. There's allegiances with whether it's political parties or the royal family, lobbying groups. So I think it's a complete myth that anyone thinks there's such a thing as free press, because there isn't.
That must feel so like being put into prison almost, like people limiting you and you can't really express exactly what you want to. How do you feel about that?
I think there are times and spaces for that, which is why I think blogging has become so popular, because for writers like myself, who's, academically and professionally trained as a writer, for those of us who are, real writers, not just give something for free and write a few lines on it kind of blogger, it's a really good place to actually be able to express and to be free in your sort of thoughts, feelings, and be a little bit more subjective as well as objective. I think that's why these platforms like Huffington Post and Elephant Journal, Mind Body Green, all these kind of big platforms have become so big, because it's a space that people trust a little bit more.
Talking about your self-expression, when did you start your blog?
So I started blogging about 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
It was something that I'd been thinking about doing, but hadn't quite found my voice, and it was something that kind of took a little while, because obviously being a newspaper journalist, you are kind of trained to write as a newspaper journalist.
Yeah.
So it took me a while, but I think it is the one place that I really feel that I can express freely who I am and be more authentic.
So would you say, just carrying on that theme of sort of being told in the media what to do and stuff, would you say that your writing on your blog as opposed to your writing professionally is a lot different?
No, because you of course apply the same standards.
Right.
For me, the main thing is fairness, balance. So if I don't believe that there is something, there's always got to be pros and cons in writing. You can't just slam something without giving much of, a lot of background and research. So I do take a lot of care and time in putting the research into the pieces that I write,
right.
And making sure that the voices of each side usually can be heard.
On your blog, it's called Desert Swan, and it says life through yoga, body and soul, as quite a call out at the top of it, as that's almost your vision. Tell us a little bit about where did the Desert Swan come from? I can probably figure that out, but and what's the vision of it? Because it seems it's you, this thing, and it's very alive in you. I know you quite well, and it's very alive in you, but I want to try and get that over to listeners because I think it's something very special.
So obviously the Desert Swan was my kind of replacement from, this London girl into the desert, and here I am in the sand 9 years later. I was just explaining that I came here for, thinking I was going to be here for 6 months, and somehow got drawn in, and 9.5 years later I'm still here, loving this place. So that was where the Desert Swan came from. And really the blog is to try and express that. For me, yoga is so much more than just a physical practice.
Yeah, right.
It was something that transformed my life. The teachers that I've had in my life have helped progress me on that journey. And I think in terms of social media these days, it is quite easy to see yoga as nothing more than a physical practice. And I think yoga over recent years has kind of struggled in terms of maintaining its kind of traditional side as well.
Yeah. It's because there's a lot of perception around it, right, of what it is.
So many misconceptions as well.
Right. So what?
Yeah. What is the definition?
What is the definition of yoga?
What is your definition?
Yeah.
I guess different people, different ideas of it.
So on the way here, I kind of knew this question was going to arise.
It's like
so I was
grilling
thinking,
already, isn't it?
No, it's just that it's such a long question, really. I mean, yoga is a hundreds of years old philosophy,
right.
more than anything. So the Yoga Sutras is a book of philosophy.
Right.
It came from a guy called Patanjali, an Indian sage, and it's really a guide to how to live our lives, based on things like non-harm, so meaning not harming others, not harming yourself, not harming the planet. Santosha talks about contentment, so finding contentment in who you are, in where you are, in where your life is. But it's also concepts that are not even unfamiliar to people like you, Mark, because we've discussed this as well, finding comfort in discomfort.
Yes.
So these are ways of kind of training your mind to live a better life. And these have nothing to do with our physical practice. So in this yoga philosophy, there are 8 limbs, 8 pieces of the puzzle. And yoga asana, which is the physical practice, is just one. So it's just 1/8 of this huge puzzle.
Wow.
So to see it as this physical practice, and you see these beautiful images of these poses, is just really just a teeny tiny part of what yoga is.
So why do we only see that then? Because I know a little bit about what you've spoken about, but if I took what we see and what people speak about as yoga, we only see that one pillar. Why do we only see that?
I think images play a huge role in our lives today.
Yeah.
So
Same with any sport, right? In CrossFit, we only see the snatch and the clean and jerk on Instagram, right?
I never put snatch or clean and jerk.
Well, we know why.
Yesterday I did, and it was terrible.
We know why.
Put it in fast forward.
We know why you don't do it.
Correct. But what's happening there?
I think a lot of it is being watered down. I mean, as a whole side discussion, I think yoga is becoming gymnastics on many levels.
Right.
And when yoga was formed, the Yoga Hatha Pradipika is 5 poses. There's nothing about handstands. There's most of the poses we practice today were not even there.
Right.
Hatha yoga was created to allow us to sit in meditation.
So what are the 5 original poses then?
They're seated postures, all
Right.
of them.
Okay.
So there's nothing gymnastic about it.
Wow.
And it was only at the turn of the 20th century that this started to transform. And yoga was actually created by men for men in India. It was to train little Indian boys to be
Right.
more disciplined.
Wow.
So they had a strict regime of turning up to practice. This was their set series of poses. When they progressed from these poses, they moved to these poses. And
Wow.
these are the disciplines known as Ashtanga, which is much more traditional.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And if you go to Ashtanga teachers, you will feel that much more sort of historical philosophy side of the practice.
Right.
But without these kind of lineage practices like Ashtanga and Iyengar, Iyengar yoga was also created as a form of rehabilitation. So
Wow.
BKS Iyengar had a terrible accident where he was told he would never walk again. This is an Indian guy who in the, again, early 20th century created this form of yoga to heal.
Right.
And again, it was very much a Indian boys' practice for many years as well.
Right.
So, this what we see now with these sexy girls doing these crazy back bends. I mean, this just wasn't where
Can't
it came
wait
from.
to talk about that later. Yeah, carry on.
But it also gets back to the original question of why don't we see this? Is actually a lot of teachers don't read the Yoga Sutras. They don't even know what they are. It's not in every teacher training.
Right.
Not every teacher training is born equal. So the focus on anatomy isn't in every teacher training, which I think is terrible, because if you're working with people's bodies, we should all have a basic understanding of anatomy.
Yeah. And
in the same way, if we're teaching yoga and practicing yoga, we all need to have that basic understanding of the Yoga Sutras.
100%.
So, there are things which are being watered down.
Okay. Wow. So what else is yoga then? If the physical practice is only one part of it, what else are the important parts of it that we don't see that people should be practicing or are practicing on a regular basis?
So mainly I would say it's about what we call the yamas and niyamas, which so it's the code of conduct for your personal life and for your community life. So these are guidance points to your way of living. So at the points I was mentioning, such as non-harm, contentment, meditation, self-study is a big part of yoga as well. So self-study is in reading, your self-practice. Yeah. So there are so many parts of this that come into making yoga a form of your life.
And what role do you think these other pillars play? Are they just as big as the physical part, or is the physical part larger than the others?
No. The physical part. The physical part was only ever meant to be a gateway to the other stuff. Right. And especially in the modern world, people come to something with the aim of a physical practice, but ideally they see that physical practice, they experience the physical practice, and gradually they want to learn more about the other stuff.
Yeah. But okay, how much, and this is not personal to you, but give us an example. Like, I understand that some of the stuff of self-reflection and being good in your community is difficult to measure how much time you spend practicing that. But as a generality, aren't more people spending more time on the physical side and that pillar than anything else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or are some people just taking, because it's a free world, we can take the good things out of anything we want. And if I like part of what you're doing, I can take one pillar. Is that what's happening within the yoga community or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you were to say to Joe Blogs on the street, what is yoga, they'll either say touching your toes or doing a handstand. Images have kind of imprinted on people's minds, and that's what I find so sad about it, actually, is that there are so many benefits to a practice of yoga which people don't even go to because they think, well, I'm never going to do a handstand, or I'm never going to touch my toes, or I'm too inflexible for yoga. Yeah, I agree. So I think that's been a real challenge to modern yoga.
First thing I've learned is it's not just about stretching, so I could actually be quite decent at it. Yeah. No, I doubt it. So talk to us a little bit about, you said 9 years ago you sort of got into it. How did you get into yoga, and what was attractive? How did that all play out?
I think for me it's really been a case of the teachers. It's been, for me, I call it kind of finding the one, you know.
Yeah.
It's like you find your teacher and he or she is the one that just gets you hooked.
Right.
So I had been through several teachers for the first couple of years that I was here. Then I moved to Dubai and I found my teacher Liz. And Liz just managed to make this experience so much more than just going to yoga, doing physical practice. There was so much spiritual stuff. There was so much stuff that made you reflect. She would do things like read, poetry readings and read quotes, and she would inspire us to think beyond the pose. We would talk about how, for example, you're in a pose, and then she would ask, how are you talking to yourself while you're in this pose? And these are the things that, because you could be there going, oh, my body, it's so rubbish, it's not doing this, why isn't it doing what I want it to do? But it's all about, how you talk to yourself, how you actually feel in your body.
Yeah, right. So it's, but is that not also, that's her, was that, like you said, it's your teacher and stuff, but is that the interpretation or her interpretation of it, and then being taught to you in that way, and then you're receptive to it? Does that make sense?
Definitely, which is why I do say to people, try several styles of yoga, try several teachers, because it's like dating. You're never going to just like turn up to the first date and then be like, let's get married. It does happen.
It happens, and some people stay together a long time, but a lot of people don't. So it's so you started practicing yoga, and what did you feel? What was the most what was the biggest positive you started to feel?
I think it was, for me, that I felt it was a place where I could actually just be me. I could be in touch with my emotions. It was the first time I experienced doing something physical, and sometimes I would just be in, so we call the final pose Shavasana. It's called dead body pose. So you're on your back.
Sounds
you're
good.
literally you're literally just
while somebody's reading poetry, just sleeping.
Exactly. You're not supposed to sleep, but but it was, there would be times where for no reason, after just having done the practice, I would just cry. And this is quite normal in yoga practice, that sometimes it just allows people to find a space to tap into their emotions, because of course we lead these busy lives, and a lot of us are interfacing with people all the time, so we put on these smiles, and life is kind of hard work when you're going through stuff emotionally and things outside the office or your job. So I think it was the first place I really felt that I could just go and be me, and no one expected anything of me, and I could just be okay with being whatever I felt that day.
Was that like something that, I mean, it must be quite an unreal plus surreal experience that you've got perceptions of yoga, you've gone to this class, and you've done a little bit of stretching, but we know it's more than that, and then suddenly at the end you're in this dead person's pose and you're crying.
Don't worry, it wasn't like blubbing my eyes out. It was just, the tears.
So you're in a complete different zone and mental state that you've ever been in before through 1 hour of yoga.
Hour, an hour and a half sometimes.
That must have done something unbelievable to your mind.
It is mind-blowing, and a lot of people find it really overwhelming when it happens to them. And I've had my own students ask me, I cried in that class. Was that normal? I mean, and this is the thing. It's just learning that these things, anything is normal. What is normal and what is not normal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just allowing yourself to be who you are and feel the feelings you're feeling at that moment is normal, and it's okay, and it's safe. So I think for me, it's learning that yoga is that safe space. That it's your space and it's your time.
But then, okay, so you left that first class having had this experience. What's going on in your mind?
I don't think that was my first experience in the class, actually. I don't think I cried the first time, but also simultaneously, at that time I was doing a couple of years of boxing, so I could kind of compare
the other end of the spectrum.
But no, I actually wanted to relate this, because I think that any physical practice has the possibility to transform you mentally and to make you stronger mentally. Because people say do yoga, it will create a stronger mind, a quieter mind. But actually, having done so many different physical practices, I can say there are other things that can transform you. So it isn't the only thing. So that's how I want to differentiate. Yoga isn't just about transforming in that way. It's transforming along the way that yoga transforms you, rather than, because every physical practice that you do has that potential.
And
exactly.
we've seen people crying here before. I mean, Yeah, but no, it's true, because
Yeah.
it comes a point, and this is what I want to try and tap into, because it comes a point where there's this disconnection of the mind and the body with what's going on, but a complete connection of what's inside. And that might sound to people a little bit confusing, but you suddenly feel, I don't know, you feel more alive. And I've seen people crying in here for no reason, for absolutely no reason. At the end of the workout, some people cry at the beginning because they don't want to do it. Maybe I understand that. But there's this complete sort of thing that happens where, like you said, it's not like you're just blubbing, but you're just like, all these emotions are coming out. So I think I agree with you that it's not just, it's any discipline that you follow that has sort of physical and mental impact on your life that really starts to, I guess it starts to change things, right?
And I think it's when you learn to actually be in that moment and being present. I mean, I've had students, they come, they do the class, but they're not really there. They're just, they're not really listening. They're not really following instructions. They're not really there in their mind. So even if they're partly there in their body, you're not really there. So you're not gonna feel the benefits of any physical practice unless you're present. So
that's great advice to give on to our listeners.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
To be present. Whatever you do, if it's a conversation, it's training, it's work. Just be 100%.
In training, if you're not present, then don't be surprised when you get hurt, because if you're not paying full attention, how does this feel in my body? Am I feeling good? Shall I carry on? Shall I do more? So in anything, I think being present is actually really important.
Do you think because we see people exactly the same in our environment to what you've explained in your environment, why are people in that environment in the first place then, if they're not able to be present?
I think that's the journey, though. They will learn to get there, but it takes time, and it takes a teacher to draw them to that awareness, because you can come to a yoga class and the teacher can't do the yoga for you. You can come to a workout and no one can do that workout for you.
Right.
Only you can do that, and it's only once your mind is there that really the physical stuff comes, and vice versa. So it's a journey. So of course it does take, I mean, there's one person I've been watching for a few weeks now, and she's always late. And it takes her, several minutes to even arrive. And even during the practice, she's not hearing, she's not really there, she's doing something else. And that's where she's at in her life. I just feel to myself, she'll get there eventually. Just try and help her as much as you can, because obviously there's stuff going. You just don't know what's going on outside the class, outside the studio. In people's lives. So. The best you can do as a teacher of any kind is just guide and just be there and, let them go on that journey.
Talk to us a little bit about your journey through, we've had that first time or the first few times and you started to feel it was something special because what it did to you. 9 years has passed, a lot's happened, and you're now a teacher and you're helping other people on that journey. Give us a few of the points along the way of how things changed for you, how you got maybe addicted to it, and what benefits you started seeing in your life, and then you started to train as a teacher, all of that. I'm sure that's some super interesting stuff.
Well, I think the more I learn about sort of self-love through the practice actually helped me in a wider context, because as soon as you start learning this concept of things like self-love, then you love other people more, and you learn compassion, and you learn empathy, and these things which are really important in daily life, whether you're a yogi or anything.
So it's almost a way of life, you can almost say. It's more than 1 hour a day.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was the fact that Liz really touched my soul and my heart in her practice and her teaching that made me think, this is something I want to do for other people. So
really,
it was something that was quite powerful and something I hadn't really experienced before. But then you do your teacher training and then you realize you know nothing, and then you start teaching and you still know nothing, because life is so big, right? And you only learn in life through living and experience. And
so how long into it was it before you sort of said, I actually want to teach this stuff?
I think it was around about 4 or 5 years before I started to do my teacher training.
So it was a real journey.
Yeah, it was a long time, but it was something that I kind of felt was a kind of calling.
Right.
And when I did the teacher training, it was such a profound experience. We were 18 women in a room for every single day, maybe a couple of days off here and there, but we did our 200 hours in a month. And it was just the most profound
You'd
experience.
label that as a profound experience. I would say that would
200.
200 hours.
So it was really
with 18
full
other
on.
chicks
Yeah.
getting yogied off your face.
How come you think there was no men there?
Do you know what? I still think getting
Yeah.
men to do yoga
Yeah.
is a real challenge, and
Why?
I think that's a great topic to discuss, actually.
I think it is.
it's definitely still for some reason seen as something for women.
Yeah.
In spite of what we discussed, you know, this was a practice that was actually created by men for
Yeah.
boys
Yeah.
and men.
Yeah.
I think
So-
only very few know that. That was a really cool fact, actually.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think because most guys are looking for something that's like strong and going to build your muscles. I think just generally men feel that they're not flexible. So ultimately, they think that this is something which is
Some men.
completely out of reach.
I don't think I'm not. Why are you looking at me? I don't think I'm not. I think I'm super flexible. But when I record
Compared
it
to-
doesn't look like it should do.
But the ironic thing is actually when we have guys who come from practices like CrossFit, they're actually the ones who are more able to really get deeper into the practice because they're there. They know how to be physically present. They know how
Yeah.
to listen to instructions.
Right.
So actually, they're the ones who we see making rapid progress because
Really?
they're just there. They're able to really make the most of every single moment of the practice.
So the limiting factor is actually not physicality at all. The limiting factor is like everything. This wheel of life or this circle of life keeps going back round. It's the mind,
Yeah.
and it's the ability to sort of let go and to be present and to engage and to want to engage with the teacher.
Absolutely, and you know, just trying to get rid of those preconceptions. And I think
Yeah.
that if people feel like these are environments where it's mostly women and they
Yes.
don't know any better, then they're not going to go in. I mean, it's quite intimidating, I think, to imagine going into a yoga studio thinking, God, I might be the only guy. How am I going to feel?
I think that would be great.
For some guys, that would be a dream, right?
Holly
A whole
listens to
studio
this, it's
full
all
of
good.
women with, you know, butts in the air for downward dog.
Oh, I'm not
Acro
sure.
yoga.
I'm not sure. I'm so excited anymore. But let's talk through a little bit about that because I think that's also maybe what a misconception is. Talk us through a yoga class. What does it look like? Well, how does it start? And put that hour and a half into some words for us. So you know, this is the real sales pitch. I want to come and work out with you at the end of this.
God, it really depends on your teacher. I mean, there's
You're
no...
the teacher.
Teacher, go.
All
You're
right,
the
so-
teacher.
so
Come
my
on.
class. All right.
Yeah.
So we arrive. We come to the mats.
Yeah.
It will always begin with a meditation. Whether
Right.
you're usually, I do a meditation where we're laying down in some kind of
Sounds good already.
some kind of laying down position.
Yeah.
And usually I do my warm up from the floor so that people really just. I feel like it's really important for people to arrive kind of mentally and
Yeah.
physically and to just quieten down the mind. So often I'll do a kind of visualization process with them
Wow.
to put their stuff from the day in a box,
Yeah,
close
yeah.
the box, walk down the stairs. I walk them through down the stairs to the door, shut the box, come
No
back
way.
up, arrive on your mat. So
And
this
can you see? I love this. I'm going to come. On that bit alone, I'm going to come. I've told you this before, but now you've actually sold it. You've always just said, come to my yoga class, and it's not been interesting. But do they jump on board?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the easiest way to help someone turn their mind off is actually to guide it. I mean, traditional meditation, you know, traditionalists would absolutely hate me using the word meditation when I'm talking and guiding.
Yeah.
So I do always make the differentiation that it's
Yeah.
guided meditation because,
Right.
of course, you know, meditation is supposed to be silent. It is your own inner battle to quieten your mind. However,
Whoever
you know,
defines meditation and whatever, yeah.
So,
yeah.
so obviously in today's crazy world, you arrive on your mat, you're still thinking about the emails that you haven't sent or the
Yeah.
email that peed you off or,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
the phone call you didn't get the time to make or the traffic that you've just battled through to get to your yoga class.
Yeah,
so,
right.
you know, immediately you're just trying to quieten your heartbeat. So I often ask people to put one hand on their heart, one hand on their tummy. Arrive in your physical body, arrive to your breathing. So immediately
way.
that will connect you to your, as we would call it, your energy source. Like
Yeah.
your breath and your body comes together.
Right.
So generally I will start in that way, and then, like I say, I will do your warm-up from the floor and gently basically bring you up to all fours to your more dynamic practice. So then we'll do around about half an hour, 45 minutes of gentle flowing movement. So obviously you had asked me, is it like animal flow?
Yeah.
I guess if that's something that you relate to, it may be something that you
dynamic.
could... Yeah, dynamic movement. We're doing sun salutations. We're doing standing postures. We're doing one leg balances, arm balances. We're doing, it depends obviously who's in front of me. I teach very much to who's in the class. If I have a group of very much beginners, it will just stay gentle. It will stay learning the basics. There's absolutely no point in going through a practice if your plank isn't a strong plank, if you can't do a downward facing dog. If you don't know what a lunge is, I need to teach you what a lunge is. So there are fundamentals which obviously will dictate your practice. So, we move through a lot of this stuff and obviously moving with the breath. So I'll try and instruct you as you go through to link those movements with the breathing. However, I will leave you to do that yourself because, one person's inhale is not the same length as another person's inhale.
Right.
So I try to talk as little as possible during these practices. So I'll start to guide you and then just leave you to
So you're
keep
demonstrating
moving.
the whole time and they just follow you?
No, I rarely demonstrate actually because this is not my time to practice. I'm there, I'm in and out. You'll just see me kind of moving around the room.
Wow.
just there to guide and
Butt down, butt up. No.
It's
not like that.
One thing I really hate is teachers at the front of the room just staying on their mat. You cannot connect with your students from the front of the room on your mat, not looking at them.
Right.
I will never turn my back on my students so that they can't see my eyes. I will demonstrate in a way where they can still connect with me. I will make sure to always make them feel that I'm paying them attention.
Wow.
I've been to too many yoga classes recently where the teacher is at the front of the room on the mat saying, well, if you're doing such and such, then go to this. Well, the whole class isn't doing that, so you shouldn't even be instructing that because it shows how little you're even aware of your own students. So I demonstrate where I need to, but generally speaking, I'm just there to guide and
that's so cool
and lead in that respect. And then we come to the floor. Depending on what the focus of the practice has been, I generally do a little bit of kind of gentle stuff on the floor to just, start to bring their breath down, bring their body into some kind of more calm state. And then we finish always with our final relaxation.
Wow. That sounds...
Talk us through the last part, final relaxation.
So again, this is a place where I, depending who's in the room, sometimes I might guide you, sometimes I might not, but generally speaking, I will guide you. So you'll be laying on your back, palms facing the ceiling, legs apart, close the eyes. Again, it's just coming back to the breath. Notice your heartbeat. Notice as your heartbeat starts to, soften. Notice the rise and fall of your belly. Notice the expansion of your rib cage as you breathe. So really trying to give them things to internally look at.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will guide them from, usually I will do this in every practice, but sometimes I'll do it in more detail. But I will guide them from literally the crown of the head into their eyelids, into their cheeks, into their lips, trying to literally get every little part of their body to switch off and to soften.
Wow. Talking
them through the back of their neck, through their spine, through their shoulders, elbows, wrists, fingertips, palms of their hands.
Wow.
Because this is the way that that sound is a very powerful thing. So as soon as you hear something and you have your eyes closed and I say palm of your hands, tips of your fingers, actually you then start to feel a sensation in those parts of your body and you actually help your body to just let it go.
Yeah.
So usually I'll just go through the whole body and then I will leave them to just lay. Some people prefer to have more guidance. So for example, with my private clients, they are a little bit more challenged sometimes with their ability to let go. So I do much more. I go left side of the body than right side of the body and much more detailed.
That's incredible.
But generally speaking, you'll finish on the floor, you'll come back up to seating. Seated, I will bring the hands together at the heart with the thumbs touching your sternum. So you come back to your breath again.
Right.
So again, you touch into your heartbeat. So again, there's that complete connection with what's going on. And then I ask you to focus on how you feel after your practice. So that means how do you feel physically, how do you feel mentally, and how do you feel emotionally? Because maybe you came into the class stressed and upset, but actually now you're like, I feel pretty good now.
Yeah, right. And that's the objective.
Maybe your neck was kind of sore, maybe your shoulders were tight at the beginning of the practice, but now you're like, okay, they're a little bit looser.
Wow.
So it's just a case of really drawing people's attention to the benefits of that practice so they can walk away and actually be conscious of that and be like, actually, this is why I'm going to go back because I felt really good at the end of that.
Good at the end. It's incredible. It's I'm inspired.
That's awesome.
It's something really cool. You must have seen, like you've been teaching it now for sort of 4 or 5 years as well. What would you say, if you could, in sort of 3 or 4 points, are the most positive things that you've seen not only in your life but in you've obviously got some students that have been coming to you for a while as well. What are the positives that you see in yourself and in others?
I think from observation certainly with my clients is one in particular. When I first began with her about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, nearly 2 years ago, she couldn't even lay down and close her eyes. She was so wired. She's a mum of 3. One of her children is autistic.
Does she sleep at night?
She literally wouldn't close her eyes.
Wow.
So she'd maybe close for like 30 seconds and she'd be like a kid, like open one eyelid, then the other, like, are we done yet? Are we done? Are we still here? So now she is so able to really find that ability to let go and to just relax, not worrying about anything else for that 1 hour that I'm with her, and actually focus for herself, which is really important because I think for a lot of people, whether they're in high-powered jobs or they're, stressed mums, having that 1 hour to do something for yourself is really empowering.
Yeah. So the ability really to turn off.
Yeah.
And just to... What about physically? Obviously, physically, you're in great shape. We see a lot of people that say they're into these yoga practices that... I know we said it's not about the physical side, but they use... I guess they use that yoga as their physical activity for the week. Have you seen any sort of really cool stuff happen to people physically, or do you still think people should be mixing sort of yoga with going out and doing running or coming to CrossFit and this kind of stuff?
I would always say combine yoga with something else.
Right.
Yoga is, for me, never going to... Well, yoga is not a sport, so for me, that's not something... I always tell people, this is not a competitive sport. Whenever you're in my class, I will always say, do not worry about who's in front of you, who's next to you, who's behind you.
Yeah.
Focus on the 4 corners of your mat, and that's all you need to worry about. It's not competitive. However, yes, it can be extreme. As you know, in CrossFit, it's the same. It's really empowering to have physical achievements and to watch people achieve their first arm balance, or to achieve their first forward fold, or to finally be able to open their legs wider than about 20 inches. It's amazing to see people feel better. I mean, from certainly one of my clients, he's had back issues for several years. He's gone to chiropractors, osteopaths, physiotherapists, and to hear someone say to you, this is the first time that I have not had back pain in years, and it's the only thing which has actually helped me. That is the most incredible feeling, to think that you've managed to actually help someone in that way.
And you think that is a lot from just being able to de-stress and let go, as well as, I mean, from the class that you've just talked us through, there's not a huge amount of that physical side, which we've identified all the way through, but someone's relieved themselves of back pain.
Oh, there is a lot of the physical side.
There is a lot,
I think,
there?
I mean, mostly you'll leave my classes quite sweaty,
Tired.
and you'll feel like you've done something.
We'll call it a workout then.
But no, I think it's just making people move in different ways and move mindfully. And I'm never gonna... I mean, some yoga classes you will be rushing from one pose to the next, and there isn't even the space to breathe, let alone to feel how that pose feels in your own body. So I think the main thing is actually moving mindfully as well.
Very cool.
We always finish off some of our podcasts, or all of our podcasts, with a final question, which would be, what would be one piece of advice that you've learned or been given that you can give on to our listeners?
To just find contentment in who you are and where you are, and to trust the journey. I mean,
trust the journey.
There's so many times where in the past I've been forcing my way in life and being like, this is where I want to go and I want to do it now. But actually, sometimes you have to just trust that it will happen when it's meant to happen. Yeah. And that as long as you're walking those steps towards that goal, whatever it is, whether it's a physical, spiritual, emotional goal, you just have to keep walking the path.
Super cool. Go and check out Melanie's blog, desertswan.wordpress.com, which I think a lot of what you said, I read a lot of your articles. Actually, I think I read most of them, hopefully. Don't test me on them, but a lot of what you said obviously comes through that. So I really suggest people go and check that out, desertswan.wordpress.com, which will soon be desertswan.com. We spoke about that before we started recording the show, obviously. And they can head over to your very inspirational Instagram page as well, Desert Swan blog, and see all of your funky poses and different thoughts. But I think everyone should give it a try. If we wanted to give yoga a try, how do we get hold of you? Where do we see you? Where do you teach? Where can people get involved?
So at the moment I'm at Urban Yoga in Business Bay,
cool.
And I also do stuff privately.
Okay.
So contact me through the Instagram, through
cool.
the blog.
and everyone can
Awesome.
go and see what it's all. We'll go.
We'll go for sure.
We'll go. Me and you.
Yeah.
Melanie, we really appreciate your time, and that's a lot of inspiration for me, especially because
for all the listeners,
I think it's
so many takeaways.
I think it's super
thank
cool.
you for
and
having me.
No, not at all. Lots of different stuff than I think the perceptions that definitely I had. And it's actually the first time I've sat down with someone for 45 minutes and spoken about what yoga really is.
Yeah.
That's quite ignorant of me, but I've learned a lot. So
Yeah,
hopefully the listeners have too.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
And look forward to being in a class and to some relaxation.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for tuning into this episode of the podcast, folks, and I do hope you've enjoyed it. Of course, as always, if you do have any questions or queries, drop us an email, winning@innerfight.com. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.